I learned not to talk about Bob when I was pretty young. At first I thought my parents just couldn't see him, since they ignored me every time I talked about him. It wasn't until I was 4 or 5 that I realized no one else could see him. Teachers thought he was just an imaginary friend. The other kids I play with thought so as well. But I knew Bob was different though. I'd made up imaginary friends from time to time, and none of them were like Bob. They couldn't pick me up or sing with me like him. Bob didn't talk much when we first met either. He would sit there, walking slowly around the edge of the city, humming in that deep, resonant way he liked it. I tried to hum along, but he never seemed to hear me. When I was old enough to leave my street without my parents, I would try to follow him. He was big, but he was also slow, so I never had trouble keeping up. I started bringing him flowers and candy and any other presents. All I ever wanted was for Bob to notice me. It wasn't until I was 13 that I learned what Bob did. I'd never really thought about why he was here before. I always just took it for granted. This was the way things were. Bob was there and only I could see him, case closed. I found out things were a bit complicated after the storm. Hurricanes aren't common where I live. They tend to hit further south, and every now and then we'll hear that one might come our way, but it always seems to blow right past us. My parents said the city was lucky. Anyway, one year there was a really big storm coming. Everyone on the news kept saying it was coming right for us, and it was one of the biggest to hit the country in nearly 100 years. We were all really scared, and my parents said we were going to visit my aunt until it passed. I was excited for the trip, but I was also a little worried. I told Bob about the storm the day before, but he didn't seem to react. He just kept walking around the city like he always did. Now I know he's a big guy, but there was also a big storm. I was sure it would hurt him if he didn't leave. I tried to stand in front of one of his feet to get his attention. He looked down at me, big eyes and blinking as usual, and then slowly shuffled around me and continued on his way. I decided at that point that I couldn't go with my parents. I know it was a stupid decision. Bob didn't really know me, and there was no reason I should have thought that a giant like him would need my protection. But I watched him and been talking to him my entire life. It didn't feel right to just leave him like this. So I stayed with him, kept trying to get him to stop or to explain what was going to happen. And Bob kept walking in a big circle around my city, like always. About an hour before the storm was supposed to hit, Bob changed his path. I got so used to following him at that point that he got a few slow steps away from me before I noticed he turned. He seemed to be going faster than normal now, and I had to jog to keep up with him. Pretty soon we reached the beach, right near where the river met the ocean. I could see giant black clouds in the distance. The storm was coming. I was pretty hysterical by now, begging Bob to leave. For the second time since I met him, he acknowledged me. He looked down and something happened I've never seen before. That thin, straight line of his mouth, that one I thought couldn't even open, cracked just a bit. The corners of his mouth turned upward, and it took me a moment to realize he was smiling. He reached down one of those silly rounded hands, and with some nervous hesitation I climbed on. He set me up on his shoulder and pointed to one of his eyes, telling me to watch. And I did watch. I watched as his usual hum grew louder, and his mouth opened wider as he began to sing. He sang, and the clouds that had been getting closer seemed to recede again. The wind that had been throwing my hair above my face died down. Within minutes the storm was gone, far out in the sea where it couldn't harm anyone. Bob smiled at me again and carried me back to his usual path. He set me down, and though he didn't speak, I somehow could tell he was happy. I stayed with Bob for a little bit longer after that, following him around the city. Eventually I had to go back home though. My parents were furious and kept telling me how lucky it was the storm had turned away. That's what the news was saying anyway. Some unforeseen trick of the wind sent it away just like all the others. I accepted the grounding my parents gave me, but once it was over I went back to Bob. I wanted to thank him for what he had done and what he knew he'd always done for us. Bob protects our city. I don't know why, and I don't really know how, but I know that he does, and he's good at it. Even though I wish more people could see him and know how thankful they should be, I think he's happy with the way things are. And as long as he's happy, then I guess it's all okay in the end.